Mr. Petras Auštrevičius. Thank you, first of all, for accepting this interview. I begin directly because you are the president of the delegation for relations with Afghanistan. So, what is the best scenario for Afghanistan now, and what can the West do about it? Specifically, what are European Union's priorities for Afghanistan?
Well, I'm afraid very much that so-called best scenario, it was yesterday. For today and tomorrow probably will be no even good scenario for Afghanistan. We are all taken by uncertainty, dramatic change, and we still don't know exactly how the situation security-wise, social-wise, human rights-wise, humanitarian-wise will develop. It means that we are just observing events, and we have to do probably everything possible to save Afghanistan from humanitarian crisis, because this is the stage on which we will come after military and political crisis. So right now, I think the West should do its best in order to secure supplies of medicine and foodstuff, especially for those who are in a great need. And we know there are millions and millions of ordinary Afghans who really need our assistance.
We all see dramatic images from Kabul these days, people trying to get into the airport, many of them women with small children. They all want to be taken out of the country. But how can concretely they be helped? How and for how many of them?
Well, definitely, we have to understand that we cannot evacuate each and every Afghan man, women, and children. So, firstly, our efforts are concentrated on EU residents, as well as those Afghan people who've been our associates, our partners, translators, assistants, service people, all kind of people who've been together with us for 2 decades. But situation is still very desperate, and not just in Kabul airport, which is more or less under control of NATO forces. But the way to, the road to Kabul airport is really getting to be a very complicated place to observe. And well, because Taliban is in charge, is controlling all those roads. So you can imagine, I mean, what kind of the obstacles might be on the way for people who are entitled to leave Afghanistan along with the EU or American citizens. So I'm afraid that because of this, we need a certain discussion, contact with the Taliban in order to secure timely, orderly, and safe passage.
We all, and I'm sure you are anticipate a massive wave of refugees from Afghanistan. What are European Union's policy and strategies on this matter right now? What are the discussions, the negotiations at the moment?
Well, I can tell you that even before recent crisis in Afghanistan, the European Union had many considerations and even strategies behind to prevent uncontrolled big wave, big bang migration from Afghanistan. And it was not easy even at that time. Some member states had bilateral arrangements with Afghanistan about the readmission of those who are not entitled to receive status of refugee. But now you're completely right. So with the social, economic, and security crisis, so we're facing potentially very powerful wave of migration, and knowing that a big portion of Afghan population is very young, under 18, so we can imagine how desperate young people are, seeing probably no certainty in their future. So that's why it's understandable that I think they are looking forward for any way of escape to more safe environment, maybe Europe or any region in the world. So that's why we have to consider very carefully what should be done. Of course, stabilization, even relative stabilization in Afghanistan, no military and kind of prosecution from the Taliban. It would be already a good thing to have, but we're not certain about this. Secondly, we have to work with the regional countries because, of course, I mean, neighboring countries are the first ones, I mean, to see and to feel this wave of migration. Again, we know that in Pakistan, there are millions of Afghanis settled for long periods of time, but probably in the circumstances like this, even neighboring countries should take some responsibility as well. And the European Union, the West, should work with those countries, assist them to accommodate, to finance those people in need. And thirdly, we have to be clear from the very start that will be some Afghan people asking for refuge in the European Union. So that's why here comes, again, a great question of European solidarity. Will countries share those refugees among themselves, or it might be, again, a problem of one or two member states, towards which those migrants come first.
I'm sure you anticipated and you know that Viktor Orban already announced that he will not receive any refugees from Afghanistan.
Well, I'm very sorry to hear such statements from Orban. It's not a surprise for me, but it's not a good example of European solidarity. And it brings us, I mean, again and again to the question of does Mr. Orban respects European, kind of principles of policy making? I'm afraid he is not, but those kind of, provocative statements, I would call them provocative. They don't help, I mean, to settle the situation. Again, a kind of nationalism in this regard is not a helping principle at all.
Could the Baltic states be the next entry gate for the refugees, given the fact that the Belarusian president, Mr. Lukashenko, has already threatened with that?
I have to admit that he is not just threatened. So we are facing, even now, every night, I have to tell you, our border guards see people of different origin. They are mainly from Iraq. Some are from Western Africa, like Cameroon. Some are from Congo, and so on and so forth. Among them have been even Afghan people. They try to come, and this is all the arrangement by Lukashenko, and this is a hybrid attack. First time we see as refugees being as a tool of hybrid attack. So we seriously consider a possibility to see more people on our borders, not because of them choosing the way how they want to come to the safe destination, but because of Lukashenko, and maybe not just Lukashenko. I'm sure there might be some people more to the east willing to assist Lukashenko, because Afghan people should come through Central Asia, Russia, and only then Belarus. But I can tell you frankly that we consider each and every possibility how this might happen, and we predict a certain concentration of potential refugees with the increasing tensions in Afghanistan.
Is the current situation a threat for European security? I'm talking, of course, about a new wave of terrorism rising.
Well, it's a good point. Afghan society is pretty radicalized, and among them might be some people with the connections to the former, organizations involved in terrorism, in violence, in some illegal organizations, drug trafficking, and so on and so forth. Let's not forget that Afghanistan is 80% of opium in the world. So, I mean, they might be looking forward to expand smuggling routes and systems all Europe around. So that's why I think we have to check identity of people very carefully. Among them might be some suspicious people, but of course, a great majority of people are simply poor people who come from this imaginably bad situation on the ground.
But could be the situation an opportunity for states like Russia, China, Turkey, that, they are trying to speculate any weakness of NATO, United States, European Union?
Absolutely. It's again, a very good point. This dramatic change turned over by the Taliban, I think it will be taken politically, especially by Russia and China, as an example of degradation of the Western policies, of decadence of the Western ideology, and so on and so forth. And they were not really helpful in the last 2 decades what comes to situation in Afghanistan. I can tell you that the West was the major donor in Afghanistan. We didn't come with war, unlike Soviets in late 70s. So, we didn't come to fight Afghan people. We came to prevent spread of terrorism and radicalization. So that's why we've been friends, and we are friends of Afghan people. But I don't think that some of the neighboring countries look at Afghanistan with the expectation to stabilize. I think they are looking at Afghanistan like a playground for some geopolitical games, influences, exploitation of natural resources, and so on and so forth. So that's why situation is again turning to be very much open for all kind of risks.
It's a sensitive question. The withdrawal of the United States troop was decided by the Trump administration, implemented by Biden administration. Could we have another scenario than the one we saw these days? Could things have been different?
First time the withdrawal of US troops was mentioned even by President Obama in 2009. So then it was repeated by Trump, but in between, nothing has happened. Of course, the numbers of troops have decreased considerably since then, because at what time American presence in Afghanistan was 120 and more thousand people. It's a very big contingency, military contingency in a foreign country. But I think the strategy of withdrawal was right and correct, but the tactics and how it was implemented completely out of touch. It was done in full ignorance to intelligence, to understanding how the situation is changing, and knowing that all provincial capitals in Afghanistan were taken by the Taliban in the time pace of 10 days. 10 days. Less than 2 weeks' time. So it shows that it was complete disaster from the military point of view and security point of view. It was complete negligence towards rapidly changing situation. So that's why I think agreeing in principle that our militaries had to do their job and leave, and Afghan militaries and security forces have had to replace them and take over. But so it was a missing part of the strategy in very end, implementing the strategy. So that's why I think we have wasted so much of confidence, time, resources, and first of all, human lives, because we have paid a very heavy price for our presence over there for 2 decades. And I'm really sorry for this kind of failure in a last stage of our presence, which was really because of not because we didn't like Afghan people. In opposite, we liked them and we wanted to help them fighting terrorism. But I think we failed in a final stage too much.
It's a counterfactual question. If NATO, if United States troops had remained in Afghanistan for another, I don't know, 20 years, would the outcome have been any different?
Well, it depends on what kind of a presence we're speaking about. I mean, firstly, the Afghanistan can't be, run only by military power. It should be in the hands of politicians, people of Afghanistan. And in fact, I have to admit that our efforts in state building, nation building in Afghanistan didn't bring results we've been looking for. And I'm generally speaking pessimistic. You cannot pay money for kind of for citizens to make citizens being better citizens. It doesn't work. I mean, citizens cannot be on the pay list. It should come from them. I mean, understanding about their identity, about their values, connection with the state, and so on and so forth. It comes through the constitution and self-identification. So, but this exercise in Afghanistan was costly. So we spent billions and billions. We had so many projects. And in fact, we have achieved something. We did achieve something because let's agree, the society in 2021 is so different from the society 2001. It's completely different. I mean, those people will be, asking for absolutely different level of freedom, respect, possibilities, political, economic possibilities. And first of all, I mean, they know about the human rights concept. But the state building project is not complete. And not necessarily because of our failure. I think we probably been too optimistic assessing the situation and, spending money and thinking that there is a change in the way people think. It's something different. And again, corruption did its bad job as well.
You said there's not West failure. So it's my last question. It is not a failure of democracy, of classic liberalism, or I don't know, is it a misunderstanding of cultural, of social differences?
I think we didn't want, to build in Afghanistan kind of Western style of democracy. I mean, we understood from very start that it's a Muslim country. People have own traditions, own cultural identity, history, and we respected all that. But, as United Nations principles are universal. And so we tried, to empower women, to bring education, better healthcare, better social economic possibilities, to teach probably good governance methods, because the state should be governed from the financial point of view, social as well as physical points of view. So that's why I think it was more an attempt to install a kind of modern state rather than a pro-Western state. I never had an empty hope that Afghanistan will be, I mean, next to Germany or, Poland. I mean, in terms of political considerations. No, but I think the fundamental rights and those opportunities which we believe that each and every, doesn't matter what continent he or she lives on, should be given. So we do the same in Africa, and again, not necessarily successfully, but maybe this case of Afghanistan, this kind of enforced failure will bring us, I mean, for some reconsiderations. So I think we have to think thoroughly about the experience of us in Afghanistan, and sometimes we need certain corrections. So I hope it will happen.
Okay, thank you very much for your time, and I
Thank
hope
you.
we will hear good news or better news from Afghanistan. Thank you.
I hope, but I don't see it coming.